Hey everyone, back tuning into today's video. Going to have a look at weather next 8 to 10 days in today's video, which takes us to around the 7th of February. So we'll be going into the final month of the winter with this update. I'm going to be saying Atlantic Drift. I think we'll bring some colder air into the north at times. May get a little bit of a cold snap through the middle part of next week. And the east of the Earth actually keeps flirting with the idea of turning things a little bit more significantly colder as we go through the first week into the second week, perhaps, of February. But that is a long way off, and it's a little bit on its own. It's not being supported very well by the other models, so it's probably going a bit over the top with it. But I'll show you the charts in a second. We'll also have a look at what's going on with the stratosphere and the potential for a sudden stratospheric warming in early February. So before we get on with that, just to say about the ads that Gaz went through. So there's links to articles on all the pages. Have a browse through those widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. Thanks very much for doing that. So I want to start off with the situation with the stratosphere over the North Pole. This is at 30 HPA, which is up in the top layers of the atmosphere. We've had a cold stratosphere over the past few months. So this chart is the 30 HPA temperature over North Pole, winter of 2015-2016. The grey line is the trend line. That's where you would be expecting temperatures in the stratosphere to be trending at this time of year. The black line is actually where we've been with the temperature in the stratosphere. So you can see that in November, dates on the bottom, in November we had a big crash in the temperature in the stratosphere. And we stayed very, very cold throughout the winter so far. We're now on nearly into February, of course, and we're still significantly underneath this grey line. We're still significantly colder than average in terms of those temperatures in the stratosphere over North Pole. You notice just a little bit of an uptick taking place there with the black line. Just in the last few days, things have started to warm up a little bit at 30 HPA. We can have a look at 10 HPA, which is actually even higher up in the atmosphere. This is at the very top layer of the atmosphere in the stratosphere. And we can see that there's been a more significant sort of warming going on at 10 HPA with this black line pushing up. So at 10 HPA, as I say, it's right at the top layer of the stratosphere. We're almost back towards the trend line, which is this grey line just here. This isn't a sudden stratospheric warming yet. For it to be a sudden stratospheric warming, it has to go up to sort of this level within a day or two. So we're a long way short of a sudden stratospheric warming or anything that's going to really impact the polar vortex. But it is warming up a little bit already in the top layers of the atmosphere in the stratosphere. Let's have a look at the forecast from the GFS model for those stratospheric temperatures. Remember, the idea behind this is that we push a temperature up very suddenly in the stratosphere, and if we propagate that down into the troposphere, which is the layer of the atmosphere where weather is taking place, if we can manage to do that, then this mass of warm air, this bubble of warm air in the atmosphere can create high pressure. And high pressure over North Pole is our route normally to get sustained cold weather. There are caveats with it. Of course, you never know where the high pressure is quite going to set up. And if one place is on the cold side of a blocking feature, another place has to be on the mild side of a blocking feature, if you see what I mean. So even with these stratospheric warmings, even if we get the blocking, then everything has to fall into place in terms of exactly where that blocking is sitting. So it's by no means guaranteed that we get severely cold or significantly cold out of a sudden stratospheric warming. Just one of the things that can be a bit of a game changer. So we're going to start off with the temperature in the stratosphere over North Pole, 10 HPA, that top layer of the atmosphere, for the 28th of January, for today, and of course this is from website meteosil.fr. So this is the current situation with those blue colours there, excuse me, over top of the North Pole, indicating that it's still very cold in the stratosphere over the pole. We've got these yellow and green colours around the edges, indicating that there's warming around the edges of the pole, but actually over the centre of the North Pole it's pretty cold, though the temperature is picking up a little bit, as we saw on that graph from the JMA organisation. As we go through inside of February, very little change really, still warming around the edges of the pole on the 1st of February, but over North Pole itself, still those blue colours, anchor bear, so still generally looking cold in terms of those stratospheric temperatures. However, we go through the first few days of February. This is the 3rd of February into the 4th of February, and we see warming is taking place across Siberia at this point. The temperature is starting to shoot up over Siberia as we go through into the 5th of February. This looks like it's the key date. It has done for several days now. The 5th of February, you start to get these red colours appearing. This is temperatures really shooting up. When the red colours appear, the temperature is really lifting up in the stratosphere. And if we go out beyond that into the 5th and then on into the 6th of February, you can see that those red colours are expanding across Siberia and starting to push in towards the top of the North Pole as well. So the 5th through to the 7th of February looks like it's the key date, with a very big warming event taking place in the stratosphere over the North Pole, and that continues through into the 12th. Of course, we lose the intensity of the temperature, can't be sustained at that sort of level where we have those red colours for a long time. No, it can only take place over a few days. But you notice there's a big change going on there with these yellow and green colours becoming rooted over top of the North Pole and the blue colours being pushed down into the mid-latitudes. Excuse me. Now, I'm not sure this is quite a killing blow for the cold stratosphere and the polar vortex, which is rooted to this cold stratospheric temperature. I'm not sure it's a killing blow that's going to completely destroy the polar vortex, but it will be a big event if it comes off, and it will give the polar vortex a real kicking, I think, and it could bring us some significantly colder weather into the end of the winter, into the second half of February, and perhaps even more likely going through into March, actually. So it'll be one to keep an eye on to see how things progress with this next week. Right, let's get back to weather next 8 to 10 days. We're going to start off with the 500 millibar height anomaly flow chart. So I've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 8,000 feet, is an area in the atmosphere, high pressure, low pressure beat, moved around by a jet stream running above. That's essentially what weather is, a movement of air by the jet stream. This is in the troposphere, of course. What I was just talking about, we have to take the warmth from the stratosphere down into the troposphere and then set up the blocking feature. So this level that we're looking at here, in terms of these height anomalies, is sort of the troposphere. Blue is extrapolating to low pressure, and red is extrapolating to high pressure. So what we see on both of these charts, and we'll have a more detailed look at the GFS in a moment, but the ECMWF has this deep blue, these deep blue colours here around the UK and to the east of the UK, and then we've got some ridging here out to the north and west, close to Greenland. So this is a cold pattern that the ECMWF is seeing. As I said, the ECM is sort of going with the idea that we could get some quite cold weather at the end of next week. The jet stream is trending southwards here around this trough of low pressure. And this is a bit of a blocking feature as well. I don't think this is because of the southern stratospheric warming, but it is a little bit of a blocking feature there, sitting close to Greenland. And the upshot of that is to send the winds into a northerly type direction. So the ECMWF is definitely trending colder as we're going through into the end, particularly of next week. The GFS isn't really there, though. What we see with this one is that we do get a bit of a southwards movement of this trough, but we don't have that blocking feature up to the north and the west, and we actually have a little bit of ridging here across eastern parts of Europe. So the flow going a bit like that. The jet stream is tracking southwards, but then it's moving back northwards again. So GFS isn't sort of going with this idea of it turning significantly colder next week. I think it does bring a little bit of a cold snap through around the middle of next week, but it very quickly establishes those westerlies once again, whereas the ECMWF is a much colder type pattern, albeit probably fairly flimsy and probably not lasting all that long even on that model, but definitely a discrepancy there between the ECM and the GFS. So these are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles. I'd love to show you more detail from the ECMWF and have a look at their ensembles, but fortunately we don't get very much detail from the ECMWF organisation. So we have to concentrate on the GFS really, and the red line here is the 30-year temperature average with the GFS ensembles. We can see that we're a bit below average today. It's a little bit cooler. We'll be going milder than average again tomorrow. And then as we go through into the start of next week, it turns very mild, just briefly. Temperatures do push up. And then there's that little cold snap perhaps coming through around the middle of next week. It isn't as sustained as the ECM, but it is there. But we do see the temperatures lowering off for a couple of days around Wednesday and Thursday next week, before there's a recovery taking place there in the second half of the chart. These are the dates, so quite a wet spell. These are precipitation spikes just here, quite a wet spell coming up over the weekend. Get through into next week, it turns drier, associated with this little cold snap. Then as the temperatures recover into the second week of February, we start bringing the precipitation spikes through much more. It turns wetter there as we go through to the second week of February. So what we can take from this is that temperature going to be a bit up and down over the next few days. Get through to the middle of next week, you probably get a little cold snap lasting a couple of days, and then it should, if the GFS has it right anyway, it should turn milder and wetter into the second week of the month. The temperature anomaly from the 28th of January to the 5th of February shows that we've got mild and average temperatures across most parts of the country, a little bit cooler than average north of Scotland, but most places coming out milder than average for the coming week. Most of Europe is significantly milder than average as well. The rainfall anomaly, precipitation anomaly, comes out close to average, wet and average in the north, and interestingly in the far southeast, in between across parts of northern England particularly, it turns a bit drier than average. I'm not sure quite what to make of that, but I don't think we'll be deviating all that far from average precipitation over the coming week in any case. So these are the generic charts. This is for GFS for Monday, and there's that mild push of air coming in on Monday around this area of low pressure. There's plenty of wind with that, so it'll be a breezy day, and there could be some rain coming through as well. Now as that clears away, that low pressure clears away on Tuesday, this is when we start to bring that little cold snap through with the air going into the north, into the northwest really. The isobars are trending to the northwest, but if you follow the isobars back, the air actually originates from quite a long way north, albeit with a fairly long sea fetch across the Atlantic. So cold northerly winds moderated by a polar maritime sort of influence on Tuesday, and we keep it pretty chilly as we go through into Wednesday as well. In fact, it could even be cold enough some snow across northern parts of the country on Wednesday, in the form of snow showers probably. I would suspect there'll be night frost early and late around the middle of next week as well. But that doesn't last very long. We saw it on the height anomaly charts that very quickly the westerlies are trying to re-establish. So we go through to Thursday, starting to bring the winds back into the southwest. And really that just continues as we go through to the end of next week. So this is Friday the 5th of February. Bringing another push of mild air up from the southwest with low pressure around the country. It's turning wet and windy once again. This is day 10, Sunday the 7th of February. And another little cold snap is starting to come through here again. Notice the black line, this black line just here, which is indicating the jet stream on these charts, is trending southwards. So that's why we're just getting the potential for a few colder snaps start pushing through during this first week of February. We have one cold snap around Tuesday and Wednesday next week, and then get another one potentially over the weekend at the 6th and the 7th of February. Again though, that is not sustained, and we go through to the 8th on Tuesday night. Westerlies start to re-establish once again. Now the ECMWF is a little bit more sustained with this risk of cold weather next week. So for Monday the 1st, we're bringing in this mild push of air from the southwest. Will be a mild start to next week. That gets out of the way, and we turn the winds into the northwest and the north through the middle part of next week. So that's that little cold snap coming through for the middle of next week, and that could bring snow showers into the north of the country particularly, and also night frost as this ridge of high pressure builds across the country. Now what the ECM does is it tries to re-establish the westerly winds, but these are coming into a mass of cold air but sitting to the north and the east of the country, and quite interestingly, as we go through the weekend of the 6th and the 7th of February, this low pressure takes a much more southerly track, and we finish up like this on Sunday the 7th with this low pressure tracking across the south of the country, keeps cold air to the north, and actually that cold air starts to advance southwards again on Sunday the 7th. So this Sunday the 6th, Saturday the 6th, Sunday the 7th of February could bring quite a bit of rain to the south. On the northern edge, there would be a risk of snow, and of course where the battle line is between milder and colder air, we wouldn't know until much closer to the time. But this is a more sustained cold pattern really from the ECMWF through the course of next week, and certainly for the north it stays cold. Once we get Monday's mild interlude out of the way, for the north, for Scotland, probably for Northern Ireland as well, it stays cold throughout the whole of next week and into the weekend of the 6th and the 7th of February. It's not supported by the GFS though, and it's not really supported by the GEM. So finally, this is the Canadian model. Again, there's that mild push of air on Monday. We go colder on Tuesday. It will be a very windy day if this comes off on Tuesday. There's the northwesterly winds coming down across the country on Wednesday, giving us that little cold snap for the middle of next week. And then beyond that, the low pressure comes back in off the Atlantic, turns very unsettled, but with generally quite mild air. Although you notice, again, the black line is trending by Sunday 7th to the south of the country, so the jet stream is trying to push south. So lots of mixed bag really from these models as we go through the first week of February. I think we're going to get this little cold snap around the middle of next week after a mild start to next week. I think Tuesday, Wednesday, potentially to Thursday will be cold, certainly with risk of frost. Wouldn't be surprised if there's some snow showers up in the north. And then where things go beyond that, do these westerlies and the mild air just push back in at the end of next week, as the GFS and the GEM suggest, or does the cold air prove a little bit more stubborn, and particularly for the north, hang on throughout the whole of next week and into the weekend of 6th and 7th of February, with an increase on the ECMWF anyway, there's an increased risk of snow over that first weekend of February. Not sure. I'd probably go more with the GFS and suggest that the milder winds will just return at the end of next week. But I'll keep you posted on it, and it could be that the ECM has this right and the cold air will prove more stubborn. Longer term into the second half of February, of course, all eyes on the sun's stratospheric warming and what influence that has in terms of blocking. Assuming, of course, the sun's stratospheric warming comes off, and it may not do. It's still outside the reliable time frame, so keep you posted on that. It's Joe May Friday tomorrow, looking at the month ahead from the Japanese market. I'd be interested if there's any sign of blocking with that. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching.